Okay, so in the actual true events of the story, at one point, Gene liked the doll. He was infatuated with the doll. But then at one point, Gene started being fearful of the doll. He didn't like the doll anymore. He complained to his parents about the doll. He would wake up sleepless nights screaming, and the parents would go in the room and notice that things would be turned all over the place. And then their son would be saying, Robert did it. So at one point, the Ottos had took Robert, the doll, away from their son and locked him up in the attic. Now, at some point in time, that the Ottos had passed away, and then Gene had the Otto's son. Gene had actually eventually he had moved away, but then when he became adult, Gene became adult, he wound up coming back to that home where he originally grew up in. And what happened was him and his wife, they moved into the house, and then eventually Gene had took the doll out of the attic and made him his own personal room. But at some point, the neighbors, the kids, and the adults had started complaining about they would see the doll in the window or running around the window or staring out the window and stuff, doing such things like this. It would be even neighbors that would come over to to Gene's house when he was adult. They would complain about hearing footsteps running upstairs, moving it upstairs, and giggling and stuff happening upstairs. So this was actually, like I said, based on real events that was actually taking place. So you guys, why is this so important and significant? Because you guys need to understand, before there was any Child's Play, any Chucky, any Annabelle, or any other cursed dolls, there was Robert, the doll, okay? Now, at some point in time, Robert, he had a little scuffle with his wife because his wife didn't like Robert. And his wife wanted to put Robert back, and she actually did. She put Robert back in the attic. And then Gene, as an adult, he would come and take Robert back out of the attic and then put him back inside of this special room he created for him. But then at some point, Gene had started seeing the traits of characteristics of the evil deeds of Robert the doll as he did when he was a kid. So he decided to put him back up in the attic. And at some point, at some point, Gene had passed away, and then his wife had sold the house, and then Gene was basically locked up in the attic. But then at some point, Robert the doll had got wound up where he currently resides right now is inside of a museum. So Robert the doll currently right now resides in a museum, which is basically safeguarded, so that way no one can basically come in too much contact with the doll. But then there were stories and alleged stories that people that had visited museums, after visiting the museum, when they were at the museum, they had complained about noticing certain strange events. So why is this important? Because I just wanted to give you guys a backstory. I know it was a little lengthy, but I wanted to give you guys a backstory of the actual true events of Robert the doll. Okay? Now, to go into the actual movie and to actually give you guys a quick, brief analysis of the movie, I think the movie itself, overall, it was good. I think the movie did touch on actual true events, and it did touch bases on points of the actual events of the story, even though they did change a couple of things up. But as far as the movie overall, it was pretty much on point like the actual true film. But there were some things that were not similar. I don't know what that was, you guys. I think by me talking about this doll, Robert, and now some crazy things are going on. It's crazy. So, but anyways, moving on. As I said, the movie itself, the 2015 film, Robert the Doll, it did touch a lot of points on the actual true events. So I did like that of the film. So as you guys know, I watched the film first, and then I went and I just decided to do some research on the film. And this is when I started learning the true events and history of the film. But as I said, the film, to me, it was pretty much on point as the true events of the story. As I said, there were a couple of things that they twisted up and turned, just a few things. Like I said, as far as the aid, the Otto's aid, they made it a female instead of a male, and then the name was not the same. I couldn't quite understand and put my hands on it. Why didn't they give? I don't know if they didn't want to give the credit and the actual credit to the actual creator of the Robert the Doll being Robert Eugene. Maybe that's why they didn't touch bases, or for some type of disclaimer or credit claims or something. The reason why they didn't base the character, the aid character in the actual film, why they didn't actually base it on actual Robert Eugene, the actual creator of the doll. I don't know why, but maybe there were some reasons. But in the movie, it was a female, and then the name was totally different. Than the female, the aid's name was Agatha. That was the one different thing that was different compared to the actual real film. Now, also, it's how you know that Gene, this Otto's son name was Gene, and I think that would have been important, relevant by them actually letting us know that backstory, that the actual creator of the doll actual name was Gene as well, a short nickname that he had for his actual name, Robert Eugene. So Gene was a shortage for Eugene. And also, that was different is in the movie they didn't portray it as the Otto's son naming the doll Robert. It was more of Agatha named the doll Robert and then passed it on to the Otto's son in revenge. Now, besides that, the movie was pretty much on point like the true events. The movie was good. If you have not watched Robert the Doll, the first film in the series, the saga, I highly recommend you watch this film. It is a good film and it's a good, decent horror film. I think it would be considered an underrated horror film. Now, the only issue I had with Robert the Doll was I was not too pleased with the performance of the Otto family. I was not too pleased with the casting. I do think that it could have been a better casting of the film. I think this is probably why, for people that have saw the film, and also the rating that it got from IMDb and etc. I think that this is why it didn't get a big enough rating, is because of the casting of the film, the performance. It's just that the actress that played Jenny and also that played the father, I just think that their performances was just completely not good at all. I think they were trying so hard to fit the role, but you can tell that they were trying too hard, especially the actress that was playing the mother, Jenny. She was doing a terrible job. But I mean, it was what it was, but I still liked the movie. It was good because overall, besides the performance of the cast members, I think overall the film was good. The antagonist was good. I like how they gave us the as we seen the flow of the structure, as we seen the progression of the film. I like how they gave us that actual events that was occurring with Robert the Doll. I like how they did it and portrayed Robert the Doll. Now, as you guys will look, as I'll show you guys right now, one thing I want you guys to point out, if you'll notice, there was another difference between the actual real events and the actual movie of the film Robert the Doll. If you notice that the doll, as you look right now, the doll in the movie was totally different than how the doll looked in the actual real events. As you can see from the two clips right now that I'm showing you guys, that the movie Robert the Doll portrayal compared to the real events, the true story of Robert the Doll, it did not look the same. Now, I was pretty curious and wondering why did they do that, but maybe it was for a reason. I'm not sure. Maybe they wanted to make the doll appear to be more horrific. Because if you look at the image of the doll that they portrayed, Robert, that they portrayed in the film, the 2015 film, it looks more creepy and looks more terrifying compared to the actual image and portrayal of the doll in the actual true event. So maybe that's what they wanted to do, make the doll look a little bit more creepy and everything. But if we're talking about cursed dolls, I would say that Robert the Doll actually is by far more creepier than Annabelle and more creepier than Chucky and more creepier than Slappy the Doll from the Night of the Living Dummy series from R.L. Stine's Goosebumps series. So in closing, to get ready to wrap this up, I don't want to keep you guys too much longer. If you have not seen Robert the Doll, the 2015 film, the first film in the series, the franchise, I highly recommend you watch it. It is a very good film and it's worth the watch. Even though the performance and the casting is not that too good, but it's still overall a good decent film. Another thing that I liked about the film is that compared to other cursed dolls that we've seen, such as Slappy the Doll from the Goosebumps series by R.L. Stine, and as well as the Child's Play saga, Chucky, you notice that they didn't have to make Robert the Doll talk. Robert the Doll never talked, but he still was creepy and it was very just horrific by just how they portrayed Robert the Doll. So I did like that about Robert the Doll. So just so you guys need to know, every horror film that's about or revolves around a creepy doll or a cursed doll, The doll doesn't necessarily have to talk for it to be a good, actual good film or a good horror film. It's just about how they create and how they progress with the story structure and the flow of the story with the cursed doll. So in general, to wrap this up, if I have to give my rating of this film, of Robert the Doll, I would give Robert the Doll a 7.5 rating. Now, I would have gave it a more rating. I would have given it better than a 7.5 rating. The only reason why I will not give the 2015 film Robert the Doll based on true events, the reason why I would not give the movie a higher rating than 7.5 is because of the fact that I was not too pleased with the performance and with the casting in the film. I do think that whether it was Andrew Jones, who was the writer and the producer, the director of the film, if it was his choice and decision about who decides to get, who got the roles in this film, I do think that they could have did a better job of seeking a better cast of this film. And that's why I told you guys, there are two things that can make or break a horror film. It's the casting and the overall flow of the story structure, the flow of the story, and the progression of the story. And in this film, Robert the Doll, the casting, I mean, it was just bad. It was not believable. You could tell that the cast and the parents that were portraying the idols, they were trying way too hard and it was just not good. But other than that, this film was good. And another thing, as I told you guys, Robert the Doll is based on true events. It's actually a very, very legendary story in American folklore. So just in case you guys didn't know that, yes, Robert the Doll is based on actual American folklore, and it's the actual legendary story in history. And as I said, before there was any Child's Play, before there was any Chucky, before there was any Annabelle, before there was any Slappy, any other dolls, there was Robert the Doll. So that's all I have for you guys. I'm curious to know, any of you guys that have watched this film, what did you think about it? Did you like the film or did you not like it? Other than that, that's all I have for you guys. I want to thank you guys once again for tuning into the show. Much love and appreciation to you guys. Once again, if you have not seen this film, the first film in the Robert the Doll franchise, the 2015 film, I highly recommend you watch it. It's worth the watch. So until next time, peace.